Hey everybody, I want to welcome you to another episode of the Other Side of the Story podcast, where we're bringing to you guests, people's stories that's going to inspire you, encourage you, challenge you, and it's going to help you. Today, we have the right woman, Kimberly Burnett, who is from Southern California, moved to Georgia, the great state of Georgia, but her life is going to encourage somebody today. And you could be watching, listening, and you're facing physical adversity, you're facing mental challenges, you're facing something that's really a hard time in your life. Well, Kimberly has got a story, and it's going to help you today. Kimberly, glad to have you.
Thank you. I'm definitely glad to be here and to share my story and just, pray that it really just helps somebody get through anything that they're going through.
Yeah, I believe it really will. Because, Kimberly, I say this all the time that to every story, there's a backstory, right?
Absolutely.
And so every backstory describes how you got to where you are now. And we're going to get into that. But you came from Southern California. You were raised in Southern California.
Yes.
So what were some things that growing up as a child, maybe whatever, early teen years, that helped you in your capacity or your mentality of being an overcomer?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think growing up in California, especially within my family, there was just a lot of struggles and things like that. So it's just really learning to like persevere through them. Whether it's financial issues, where it's whatever type of family issues, it was just really like with God, you can get through everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think at the time I didn't understand it, but now as an adult, I look back and it's like, oh, okay, that's why we went through that, so that I would learn to be frugal with my money, or that's why you go through this, because it's important to pray. And I see now, like the prayers and the things I see in my grandmother's Bible, I'm like, oh, those were the things that have me here now.
Mm-hmm.
So I look back as being a child, not really understanding, but now that I'm an adult, I'm like, oh yeah, you definitely see the power of where you come from and that strength and the tenacity that family can really give you.
Nice. So were you raised in church? Did you go to church as growing up, or?
Off and on. I really got more serious in church like my teenage years.
Okay.
So growing up, like when I was younger, kind of be when I was with my grandparents and stuff. But as I got in my teenage years, which is opposite, I guess, than most people, but that's where I really started going to church and just really learning the word for myself. And then once I got sick, then it was like clinging to the word. But I've always had it in me. I've always known that, hey, God is real and God is with me. But as my life has progressed, then I really got the depths of just how real and how with me he's been.
Yeah, because I know your story is a lot of physical challenges that you are overcoming and pressing through. But before we get to that, growing up in California, how many siblings did you have?
Well, I grew up with no siblings, but I didn't find out until I was a teenager that I actually had 5 siblings.
Okay.
So my mom had a child years before me, but he had passed away. So growing up, I was an only child until I was 15. And then all of a sudden, I was the youngest.
So how'd that make you feel? All of a sudden, you're now having a family you didn't really know about.
Yeah, like at first it was really exciting because you look at the TV shows where people get reunited. And so you think like, oh, wow, it's going to be this whole thing. And it wasn't that, but I am thankful I still keep in touch with some of my siblings now. So I'm really thankful for those relationships. But it was definitely different going from just being me to all of a sudden there's other people. So it was an interesting dynamic for my life to switch like that.
Mm-hmm. What did you learn in that? Because it kind of interests me about all of a sudden you're having to readjust, I guess maybe how you're thinking and how you're really living from being the only child to having other siblings.
Yeah.
Did it change anything about your thinking or anything?
It did when I really, even as I'm talking to you, when I look over my life, there was a lot of readjustment that had to happen because we moved a lot. And, it's like live with this person, live with that person. So kind of once it got to the point of like, okay, now more siblings, it's like, okay, here's another layer. Here's something else. It's like you might be moving, but now you have these siblings. And it was before social media, so I didn't really get to know them as much as I would have liked to initially. But it was definitely an adjustment of now incorporating these new people and okay, what is their story? Because we all come from different households and things like that. So it was just like, okay, like where are we alike, where are we similar? And it's different than typical siblings. You grow up taking baths together and stuff like that. For here it was just kind of like, it's more like a friend where I don't necessarily have to have you in my life, but then want you to be. So it's been interesting.
Yeah, I think challenges do come from blended families when you incorporate two different lifestyles together.
Absolutely.
So it has its moments and challenges, no doubt.
Absolutely.
So tell us now, when you graduated high school, what happened in your life then?
Graduated from high school and I went to junior college and, I did like everyone. I thought I knew everything and, I was at that age, I knew everything, right? So did that, just started working, thought I was just living a regular life. But then when I was 20, got engaged and had a baby.
Okay.
And so from there, I thought life was just going one track, and get married, get the picket fence and the white, the golden retriever and everything. But then I got sick.
Okay.
And so right after I had her,
How old were you when you got sick?
excuse me, I was 21.
So you're 21 years old, just married,
engaged,
and have a child,
right?
and you're 21,
Yeah.
and you're diagnosed with, in 2010, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
with purple rose.
Well, I was diagnosed with lupus.
Lupus.
Yes, and I started the Purple Rose Foundation. That was a lupus foundation.
Oh, okay,
And
okay.
so I was diagnosed with lupus, rheumatoid arthritis. I was diagnosed with 4 autoimmune diseases that I had no idea what any of them were.
All at one time.
All at one time.
And you're 21.
21 years old with a new baby and trying to work and trying to go to school.
So when that diagnosis hits you, what's going on? How are you feeling? What's going on in your mind? Because this is really powerful.
It was instant fear, because you turn to the internet and it's just death, death, death. And then all of a sudden I have people coming up to me. Oh, I knew someone that had lupus, they died. Oh, and I'm like, was that supposed to help me? I'm like, she looked just like you and she died. I'm like, okay. And even before I met my husband, Jonah, 2 weeks before I met him, I went to a funeral for a lady named Kim, who was a single mom who had lupus and died. And so I was like, oh, okay, wow, that's like me, So it was a lot of fear involved, because I didn't know anything about it, and not knowing that side of my family, no one in my side that I knew had lupus. So I had no point of reference of anyone living. It was just, it's incurable and you die.
I know this is helping somebody, Kimberly, because getting a diagnosis like that, the fear, the uncertainty, and matter of fact, the power of people's words, people coming around you saying things. So what did you do in the initial stages of this to combat that?
The first thing I can tell you is I turned to the word. And I know that may sound cliche at times, but it was like, that's all I knew to do. And my faith scripture is Psalm 118:17. I will live and not die and proclaim what the Lord has done. And I always had to remind myself of that. So as things got scarier and scarier, it was like, you're going to live and you're not going to die, and you're going to scream it from the rooftops of what God has done. And so as things got harder for me, I would really try to hold on to that. But I also knew I wanted to help other people, because I was scared and I didn't want other people to feel the way that I did and not have a point of reference. So then that's when I started the Purple Rose Foundation, and I started working with the Lupus Foundation, because I'm like, and even now I do a support group, because I'm like, you need that. You need to have someone that has gone through things for years. And so you can see, oh, I'm not just going to necessarily die as soon as I get, it's not a necessary death sentence. There are people who you can rely on. And I wanted to be that person for other people to be able to rely on and know that, hey, I can go to Kim and she can show me that she's gone through some things, but you can still be positive. You can still reach your goals and things like that. So it was instantly, I wanted to give back, and it helped me to have people to help.
No, I think that's amazing, because it's a powerful principle you're talking about, is that what do you feel like it was in you to go, man, you're dealing with your own struggles, but yet there's something in you that wanted to give back. You wanted to start helping the foundation, the Lupus Foundation. You started the Purple Rose Foundation. You wanted to help people that are in the same situation you are. You didn't get into a pity party, I don't guess.
Right. No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I knew instantly I want to do something with this. I knew instantly, hey, there's a reason for it. I didn't just get diagnosed just to get diagnosed. And I never knew anyone who had it and all these. And as I got to see that, I knew I need to help, because I'd never heard of it. And I'm like, how many people are going through life? They may have lupus, but they don't know because they've never heard of it.
Yeah.
So it's like, I instantly was like, I have to help make a change, because I don't want anyone to go through what I had to go through. And that was always my driving force.
I love that. Again, I want to just encourage people that are watching, listening, to go, whatever situation you're facing, whatever you're battling right now, it is not to go by yourself and go through it by yourself, but giving back helped you, I'm assuming, right? Trying to give back helped your attitude and all that?
Absolutely. It definitely, and it gave me just even more resolve to want to win and to want to just raise money for it and help find a cure. And, I got to go to Congress and help with funding and just helping with research. And I'm like, hey, I'll donate, I'll do whatever I need to do just to let's find a cure for this. Because I'm seeing people who are hurting because they're losing their family members or just even living with it, So I was just like, hey, perhaps I was born for such a time as this. If this is going to be what I have, then I'm willing to give it all for his glory. And that literally was like, I even got a tattoo of Psalms 118:17. So in my hard times, I would remember.
Well, you're turning, and did initially in 2010, you're turning a situation that was not good into something to help other people. That's just, again, a powerful principle that people need to hear and apply to our own lives, right?
Absolutely.
So having this diagnosis and going through now the health challenges, in 2012, you have a stroke. Is that correct?
2012 was the seizures.
Oh, you started having seizures.
I started having grand mal seizures in my sleep.
Okay.
And so that was terrifying. Then I was afraid to go to sleep because they
Yeah.
only happened in my sleep. And then 2014, I had a stroke. And that just really changed my life completely because I actually was supposed to start my master's degree. Like I had life planned,
Okay.
you know, and it's like you get this and I'm like, I'm still in my 20s and I'm having seizures and I'm having a stroke. Like, where am I supposed to go from there? And for me, it all roads led into you have brain damage or you die or something like that. But I still was just like, I'm still here. So there's something that I'm supposed to be doing. I didn't know at that point what I was supposed to do, but I knew I was here for a reason.
Well, talk about a minute again. We can't just fly through that. It's so challenging. And again, I know this is going to encourage somebody and help somebody. How did you deal with that mentally, spiritually, and even with people around you? How did you deal with those two type things going on in your life, the seizures and the stroke?
Well, thank you for slowing me down there. I think
no, it's important. Yeah,
sometimes
no,
it's part of my life, so I just kind of. But
no, you're good.
Mentally, it was very hard. You know, and I mean, I was a single mom. I had my daughter, so I mean, for her, the things that she's had to see, you know, picking me up off the floor and calling 911 and in the hospital with me, you know, so those were very hard. And then for my mom, having lost a child already, I felt that sense of I have to be here because I can't put her through that again. Right. You know, so I'm like trying to stay strong for her, trying to stay strong for my daughter. And trying to make sense of it and stay strong for myself.
Yeah.
So it was just really where I was like, you know, there were times that I felt like, God, like why has this happened to me? You know,
doubt.
Things have already been
I'm sure
so
you
hard.
asked why.
Oh, absolutely.
Did you ever feel like quitting?
Yeah,
giving up?
Absolutely. There were times where it was just like, why every doctor appointment, there's something bad. Everything this is wrong. Your blood work was bad. So I'm just like, God, you know, there would be moments of, yes, this is for something. And then there's other times like, can you choose somebody else? Why am I going through this? Like life has already been hard. How much more does it need to be? And so it was, I think mentally that's where it really had me, that it was a very fine line of my faith and then why is this happening to me?
So no doubt you had some bad days. I mean, we all do. I mean, people could be watching or listening having a bad day, but bad days are a perspective, right? So again, what do you feel like kept you going though? Just tell us. I know you mentioned something, but any specific things you just really tuned into and said, this is going to help me get through this?
My family, a lot. I can say my daughter, I knew it's like you have eyes watching you, you know, so I knew I wanted her to see me graduate from college. I wanted her to see like, hey, no matter what happens in life, you can be strong. You know, when I first started losing my hair, I wanted her to see beauty isn't just what you look like, it's who you are. You know, because I'm like, all this can go in a second. So it's like, who are you? Do you love people? Do you love Christ? Can people see that you love Christ? Like, what are beauty, brains, like how you treat people? I always taught her respect. Like, it really gave me my core values of like, this is what you believe outside of the aesthetics, because none of that matters and all of that can go. And honestly, I think it really taught me one of the biggest things, and everybody thinks it's corny, but don't lose your smile. Because I'm like, everything else you can lose, you know. And now that I've gone on this journey, I'm like, there's so many different things, but I'm like, through brain surgery, like you can smile, and through because there were great doctor's appointments. There were times where it's like, hey, your blood work is great, and I'm like leaving like super victorious. But there are other times where it's like, okay, they say I have to do chemotherapy. That's not going to be fun, but I'm here, so let's go. Let's rock this thing. And I had my family that would support, and they'd pick her up from school and stuff like that. So I just really, she saved my life. I really just knew I have to hold on for this little girl. She has to see that I overcome it.
There's two things I want to say to people right now that you just said. Is you got to have a why.
Yes.
You got to have a why to get up every day, have a why to live. And that's what you had. Because when people lose their hope and their why, it's tough. So you had a why, it kept you living, and you also had a smile. You understood the power of again, not allowing no doubt the depressing news at times, but you kept a smile on your face. That really is so encouraging and powerful. We need to learn from your life. That's right, is to have a why, and to keep a smile, man, to have some joy in your life. That is amazing.
Absolutely.
So from the surgeries, the stroke, now you're facing transition. Let's talk about transition for a second, because everybody goes through transition. So you're in Southern California. You no doubt have established doctors and a system around you. But then all of a sudden, I want to talk about the transition at that moment in your life where you move to Georgia. All right, that's you didn't move across the street. You moved from the West Coast to the East Coast.
Right.
in the middle of all these things, challenges. So how did you deal with the transition of that?
Well, in the midst of that, thankfully, I met my husband. And so
Okay.
that, which that was just like all God, because I'm like, I have all these sickness. Who's going to want me? So I went through all the self-esteem of who wants someone, a sick, single mom who can't work, and all that. And so it's like, when I met him, one of our first date, he said, okay, so what is your flaw? Because at this point in life, we're like, we don't want to cut. What are we
Yeah.
here for? We're dating with intention. He's like, what is your flaw? I'm like, well, I have lupus. I have this. I've had a stroke today. And he said, so then what's your flaw? And I was like, whoa, he doesn't think that this is a flaw, and
Mm-hmm.
so once we started dating and we got married, it was like within a year, and it was just like, okay, he was working, he was a sheriff at the time, and then it was just like he couldn't do that anymore and start working in aerospace, and you guys got to move to Georgia. So we're like, oh, okay. We're thinking like, yay, cool area, Georgia. And we get on 75, we keep going and going, and we're like, Warner Robins, wow. But there was even provision in that, because one of my friends from California, when I told her we're moving, she's like, oh, I live in Kathleen. I was like, I don't know where that is. She's like, it's 10 minutes from you. I was like, oh, wow, okay. So she's actually how we started coming to Hope Church. She's like, there's a church here. I think you'll love it. It's kind of like what you had in Southern California, because out there it's so mixed.
Mm-hmm.
So she's like, I think you'll like it. It's multicultural. I'm like, okay. And we came the first day, and we never left.
So in your transition, again, we can say this: God directed your steps.
Yes.
In transition. So be encouraged, if you're watching, listening, that you might seem like, well, where am I going? But God's always directing your steps.
Always.
Had a place for you already before you got here, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When we didn't even know Warner Robins existed,
Yeah.
but it was like, it was already set up for us. And so, like you were saying with doctors, that was a challenging part, because coming here, I went to a few doctors who said, oh, you don't have lupus, you're fine. And I'm like, well, I've gone through chemo. Like, I've gone through a lot to just not have it. And so then I go back to California for all my doctor's appointments.
Wow.
Because I was going up to Atlanta for one of my doctors, and he was like, oh, no, he was a neurologist, one of the top, and, that's fine. But he was just like, oh, just walk across the room, you're fine, and all this. And I'm like, okay, and you're the patient, so you just keep going, and so then that's where, once we moved back to California, I'm like, oh, whoa, I need brain surgery, and I mean, just thankfully going back to the doctor I had, he's like, I'm comparing these scans. He's like, this wasn't there before. I'm like, oh, okay. So for me, initially, I was upset. I didn't want to move back to California, because we finally got established. We had a church. We just bought our first home. I was all excited.
How long were you in Georgia?
1 year.
1 year. 1 year. I just gotta tune in this. 1 year.
Yep.
Doctors here tell you don't have lupus.
Right. Nope.
You again, God directing your steps. You moved back to California, and you had to have brain surgery.
Yes, sir. Yep. And they were like, hey, we don't know what this is. It might be a tumor. We don't know. And I'm like, well, I know I'm not going to be able to just monitor it. I'm going to need to know what it is. Mm-hmm. So they did a craniotomy. They cracked my skull open and went in and took out 1/8 of my brain tissue in the front. And then when I went, they said, nope, it wasn't a tumor. It was dry blood and scar tissue. I was just like, wow, okay. Like, that was just overwhelming. Like, it was huge.
Well, again, you're saying so many things that most people face one thing.
I know.
Along that line, and either quit, give up, or it's just so hard. Mm-hmm. But you're facing multiple things.
Right.
And again, I just want to kind of relate this to other people. Your faith, and again, tell us at that stage, tell us what you're doing when all this stuff's happening in your life. How are you overcoming all this, man?
Whew. Gosh, honestly, I'm just thankful for the people I had around me.
Yeah.
Because if I'm being honest, there were times that I didn't believe anymore. I was just like, things keep happening. And it was like, but I'm so thankful that God really surrounded me. I have great friends. I have mm-hmm. great family who would be like, Kim, you're going to be okay. We'll go to the doctor's appointments with you. We'll bring you food. Like, they kept me encouraged. And whether it was just a funny joke or funny, it was something that I'm like, it's like God knew, like, I needed oomph. Like, I needed just like a spark in me sometimes.
Yeah.
It was in those dark moments that it was like a text would just come through or something would happen. That really showed me just the power of community, because I'm like, they didn't know, they were just sending me a funny meme, but mm-hmm. I'm like, in that very moment, I needed to laugh, and I just needed. And so that really fueled me of whenever I have my relationships, I want people to just see and feel seen by me. And I want them to feel Christ by me, because you don't know what someone's going through. Mm-hmm. So it's like, it really showed me when I was going through things, just those simple acts of kindness that someone would do for me. I know how it could change my whole day. Yeah. So it was just like, I want to do that for other people. And then it went beyond lupus. I was like, we're all going through so many things. And like you said, it's like, yes, there's lupus, but there's so many other parts of me. And that's where it really started to make me see, like, hold on, check in. Where are you at mentally? Where are you at? Like, how's your spiritual life? How are you with your family? It really had me look at every area of my life. Like, okay, lupus might have been what brought some things to my attention, but now take that and then put that everywhere and really see, like, how can this make me a better Kim, period? Not just a better, because one of my friends said, so once you're healed from lupus, who are you going to be? And she's like, just the girl who had lupus? And I was like, oh my gosh, like I had never thought of it because I was just living in that mode of I'm sick. And so once she said that, it really made me like, yeah, I want to be a better me. And for however long I have, I want my daughter to see a better me.
That's good. I know it's helping people because you're teaching so much things about, really who you are, the power of community, power of support system.
Yes.
So no matter what people are going through, what we're facing, we all need that, right?
And we want to isolate because I wanted to be sad and I wanted to just, like, oh, I'll just, Kim, you want to go? No, I'll just, but I was like, you need it. Your soul needs to be. Now, I knew I did need some time to be alone because I needed some time to journal, just to process my emotions. But I couldn't stay there. I knew I needed to be around people. And I think it really helped for people too, because they wanted to help me and they didn't know what to do. So they're like, hey, like, I'll come do a load of laundry for you. I'm like, okay. And so that just showed me just those little acts of kindness, that it's something simple you can do for someone, but it means so much to someone when you don't know what they have going on.
Yeah, those are powerful. Again, I'm going to encourage people to do that because you never know what somebody's going through in their day. And I see this too, because I think a lot of times when we go about in life and we get mad because we can't get our coffee on time, or, we get mad at people and don't realize what kind of day they're having. So it's a great principle to learn. Always step back and think they might be having a hard day.
Absolutely.
Maybe a smile will help them. Just maybe a kind word. So we can all operate that
and
way.
Kindness is free. A lot of times we think, oh, buy the coffee for the person behind you. And that's awesome. I'm very thankful when people do that for me, but sometimes it's like, it's something free. Hold the door open. Oh, here you go. Little things like that. It's like they might have just had stubbed their toe or something. It's like it really just showed me the important, like, what's important in life. Yeah. What's really important is being a good person, being a kind person, and just loving it, just because that's what I received in the times that I needed it the most.
Yeah, when you're going through all these challenges. So you moved back to Georgia after your brain surgery and all. And what year was that?
Where are we at? It was 11 months. We weren't even in California for another year. Yeah. So we moved back to Georgia. This time we have our moms and mother-in-law in tow because my father-in-law had passed. So we moved back here and never thought we'd move back to Warner Robins. Yeah. That's for sure.
It's a crazy journey.
It was a crazy journey. Like, I mean, it was funny because I finally got to the point that I loved Warner Robins. And we moved back to California. And then I was like, this doesn't feel like home. So then moving back here, then it did feel like home. And it was just like, got connected, back with church, back with friends, and already knew the schools and everything like that. So that weight was lifted. But then I started passing out all over town. I mean, at Kroger, at home one day, like just randomly, and went to a cardiologist. And at that time, I'd have palpitations before, so I've had like a monitor that they could see stuff. But he was like, oh my gosh, he says, has anybody in your family ever dropped dead? Whoa, what? Like, that's not anything anybody ever wants to hear. Right. And he's like, yeah, you need to go for heart surgery. And I'm like, okay, middle of COVID, Jonah's not here.
Hold on. So this journey of yours has been so many physical challenges, so many physical setbacks, from diagnosis to lupus, to seizures, to a stroke, I should you hear this, to brain surgery.
I know a lot of times I just say it and I'm like,
and I'll say it's amazing in the right way of you're here and you're an overcomer. And people need to know that about their own life, no matter what they're facing, right? So your story is so powerful. You move back to Georgia, you're passing out, and now you had to have heart surgery.
Yep, I had to get a pacemaker. And
how'd that make you feel? How are you dealing with? I mean, where are you at this point in life? What are you doing?
This point, I'm beyond terrified. I mean, for this part of it, I was alone. So it's like I had my baby here, and then, my husband was in California getting his mom. So
your husband's in California, you're here.
Yes.
So again, that's another thing, another challenge, right? So people could feel like they're by themselves, have no support system.
Right.
So again, what did you do?
I think sometimes it's just, you don't have a choice but to do. You know, it's kind of like people like, how do you do it? I'm like, well, you wake up and, you got to feed the kid and you got to, so it's like life just kind of.
So your why again, you had a why.
Yeah, exactly. Once again, had a why. And so it was just like, all right, I gotta get up. And when they said, hey, you got to have this emergency heart surgery, I called him, and he's in California, and he's like, okay, I had to get on the next thing smoking. I'm
But
on
I
my
think
way.
you said it's in the middle of COVID, middle of a pandemic, global pandemic.
Yes.
And your husband gets COVID, I think you told us.
In California with COVID.
And what happens?
So he just knows he has to get to me.
Okay.
So he heads here, and he gets on a flight, and he's on the tarmac to get here, and the nose of the plane falls off.
Say that again.
He gets on a plane to rush to get to me for my heart surgery. They're pulling off in Dallas, and the nose of the plane falls off, and they have to go back to the gate and deboard and get on another plane.
He's got COVID. You need heart. I mean, again, people, you're listening and watching. No doubt. Again, our life, in perspective of people that are being encouraged by your life, is we think sometimes our problems are the only thing, but there are always somebody facing bigger challenges or troubles than we are.
Right.
And we're learning from you today, of all things, the nose of the plane falls off.
Like, of all things.
How'd that make you feel?
Honestly, for that part of it, I wasn't awake.
So you wasn't even awake?
No, he ended up not being there for the surgery part of it. So I wake up, and he's there, and I'm like, oh, hey. And I'm like, how did you get here? I was still, and he's like, yeah, I'm like, did you say the nose of the plane? Like, I was like, is this Final Destination? Why is everything trying to take us out? But yeah, none of it's winning. So it was just like, okay, well, you're here, and I have this machine in me now. And they were able to trace, it's crazy what medicine can do, because they were able to replicate what I had going on. So they knew I needed a pacemaker, and he was there with me in the hospital, and he wasn't on the plane, thank God, in the air with the nose falling off.
That's just an amazing story. It is, the things that you have battled and overcome with your husband, your children, your health, and you're still here.
And I'm still here.
So going through all that, what made you want to because now let's talk again about your education. You're going through all that, you're facing all that, you're giving back, get involved with the Lupus Foundation, you create one, start one. Now you start going to a Bible college, Hope Seminary. What made you want to get into education?
Well, it was twofold. One, I wanted to dig deeper into the Word, because I just was like, you learn it on Sunday, but then going to Hope Seminary, it was like, it got so much deeper, and it really helped me to see whoa, God, really what God was for me. And then it helped me just to help other people too, because I'm like, it's one thing you have this message on Sunday, and I'm like, okay, but then going and doing my studying, and it was like, whoa, I learned about that, and I really know it in depth now, so I'm really able to help people, because I can encourage them not just with my story, but with the Word of God and those stories, and so it's able to, I think, even just be more relatable, because sometimes people feel like, oh, I don't want to fit. I'm like, no, the Word of God is incredible, and it really does speak to what we have going on today. It wasn't just thousands of years ago.
That's right.
This is right now. And so with Hope Seminary, I was able to not just learn it, but to be able to apply it to what's actually happening now. And then that really, it helped my faith a lot. And then it helped my witness to be able to help other people who were going through things.
Yeah.
So when they're telling me I'm having a hard day, I'd be like, I just learned about that at Hope Seminary today. I can't even make it up how many times that would happen. And I was able to teach them what I learned. And then able to do that. They may have never gone to church, but I was able to teach them what I learned. And so that really fueled me going from Hope Seminary. It's like, I want to do more of this. I want to learn even more. So it was like, I'm going to go to a Christian university, and I'm going to get my degree there, because I really am like, I know God has me doing something. And I know everything I do is going to be for Him. And so I would need to know as much about the Word of God as I can, so that I can relate to everybody, because my life has been so many different things. So to be able to have my life experiences, my sickness experiences, and the Word of God, I was like, that's all that I need.
Then you just kept growing. We want to encourage everybody, always be a learner, right? Always keep growing.
Yes.
And that's what you were showing and exemplifying, no matter your situation.
Absolutely.
Then you got a master's degree. Tell us about that.
Yes. And oh gosh, that was hard. It was getting a master's degree, but it was a huge thing, because when I had my stroke, the very next day I was supposed to start my master's program, and obviously I didn't. So this had always been a dream that I wanted to get my master's degree, but I was very nervous at first, so I started off small. I was like, I'm gonna just do the grad certificate to see if my brain after brain surgery still works. And so I got that, and then I was like, okay, I can still use the amount of brain that I have left.
Yes.
So I got the degree, and it was just like, as I sat there in graduation, I just was like, because I tend to gloss over things, because I guess it's just my life. So I'm like, oh, this happened, this. But I was like, slow it down. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, remember how you felt in those doctor's offices? We're like taking those moments, and now taking this moment. And it was just like, this is so God. Like, I think a lot of times we say like, oh, it's all, but I was like, no, seriously, like I shouldn't even be here.
Right.
And yet now I'm graduating with a master's degree. Like my brain works, and prayer, like everything that I thought I believed, it was materializing. I'm like, this is literally why you believe what you believe. And now you're here. And it just was like, wow, I it was October, which that was the month of my anniversary, it was the month of my birthday, the month of graduation. So that whole month was just like, I was on this high, like of just like, wow, God, like this is everything. I wanted to be married, have my anniversary. I'm wanting more birthdays. It's my birthday. I wanted this master's degree, got that. Like it was like, oh my God, like everything. Ooh, sorry.
No,
just
that's
like
why your
everything
story is so amazing, Kimberly. It is amazing. I know people are just being blessed by this and encouraged because your master's degree is in mental health, mental wellness, and Christian counseling.
Yep.
That's good.
Yep.
That's good. Again, giving back.
Yes.
Continue to be a learner and a grower.
Absolutely.
And always stop, because your story tells me this, and I know it's speaking to other people too. Your story tells me you have to enjoy every moment of life, enjoy your journey, and never quit, right? Never give up.
And never quit, and enjoy the journey no matter what it throws at you, because there's gonna be the days where it's the hard days. I mean, that's the reality of it. But there are the days it makes you grasp so much more to the good days. And it's like I appreciate them so much more because I put everything into perspective. And I'm like, wow, like I was here and now I'm here.
Yeah.
And whether it's been the drastic, like, oh, brain surgery to a degree, or if it's just like, wow, like my blood work wasn't good this day, but then my daughter graduated that day. Like there were just these little wins that weren't little anymore, and it really just like, wow, these bad things are happening, but there's so many good things. And really it's what you focus on is really where your attention goes, is what you see more of. And so I was like, okay, this is real and this is happening, but all this stuff is real and it's happening too. So let me focus more on that than how scared or what the doctor report always says and stuff like that, because I needed to really just to stay sane. Because if I always just focused on being sick, the appointments were going to keep coming and all that stuff. I couldn't stop what that was going to do, but only thing I could control is what I focused on. And so that's what I tried to do.
So Kimberly, you had some great victories in October.
Yes.
A great accomplishment, overcoming some things, but you had an event that happened in your life a couple of weeks ago. Share that with us.
Whew, yes, more than an event. It was crazy. So 2 weeks ago, I was running errands and I was going to go home, and I said, you know what, I'm hungry. I'll go grab something to eat. So I go to the restaurant, I eat my food, life is great, and I go to pay. I say, hey, everybody, I'll see you later. Next thing you know, I feel dizzy. I'm on the ground. The very next memory I have is looking up, and one of the other customers who I always talk to, she came in and she was like, Kim, your pulse, you just passed out. I was like, oh, did I have a seizure? She said, no, you just fell out. Well, then my husband comes, gets me, we go to the hospital, they're running all the scans, and they come in and he's like, so your heart rate went from 98. I said, okay. He said it went up to 400. Like, okay. And he said, and then it just stopped. What? He's like, your heart stopped for 9 seconds, not minutes. It stopped for 9 seconds. And he says, the specific thing he said, like that football player, DeMar Hamlin, what happened to him on the field, that's what happened to you. He said, the only difference is a team came and saved his life. Your heart started back on its own. And I was like, well, wait, the defibrillator didn't go off? He said, no, it didn't have to. I didn't understand. I thought it was defective.
Right.
He said, no, your heart came back before it needed to go off. And I said to the doctor, I said, so God? He said, yes. And I was just like, wow. I mean, it would have been enough that if the machine, like if it worked, but I was like, it was like God was like, I got you. I'm going to bring you back. Like know me. And there, I mean, it was just like, oof. Like, it's weird how it works, because I've been scared, but then it's like God just reminded me, like, Kim, I just did a miracle. You don't have to be scared anymore. Like, I literally saved your life, and it was just like, I've had so many things where you could have died and, oh, this would have been scary. But I'm like, no, this was it. This was it. And then it wasn't. And it was like, God's not done with me. I know that he has more for me. And I know that it's not just for me, it's for me to talk to other people and just really share. Like, it doesn't matter how low your situation goes to the point of death. He can bring you back. He can do it all. And he will do it all.
Thank God, it's amazing. It's a miracle.
Yeah.
It's never over till God says it's over.
Absolutely. Right? Never quit, literally.
That's good. That's good. Only thing you control is what you focus on. Thank you. Your story, again, I cannot emphasize enough, is amazing in the sense of just your tenacity, your endurance, persevering, through all these challenges, these physical challenges, emotional, mental, all these things that you've overcome to where you are today.
Yes.
I know, again, people, no matter what you're facing right now, people listening, your story has encouraged them. So just one more thing before we close.
Yes, sir.
If you could tell somebody, no matter what level of challenge they're facing, I mean, you've spoken on a lot of things. They're facing difficulty physically, difficulty financially, relationally, whatever. What would you tell them today if you could sum it up in 2 or 3 statements?
Whew, with all that's happened?
Yes.
Okay. One, don't isolate yourself. There are people who love you, and it's so important to know that. And then two, however you can keep hope, if it's one little thing, remembering your why, because there is a why, and it's like whatever, it could be huge or it could be small. It could just be, I don't want my family to have to bury someone, so I'm going to fight. I don't want to let myself down, so I'm going to try. I think that those were things. And then just be kind. It just, I want people to remember that they were, I just want them to know that I remembered them, and I want them to remember me like, wow, that's someone who just cared, because that's really what we need in every aspect. It helped for people to like, wow, they cared that I had a doctor appointment there. Oh, they cared just to say, hey, Kim, how you doing? Like, wow, you can feel forgotten about sometimes in life, and just to know that people care. So that I guess I looked at the lessons, the things that were important to me.
Right.
I want to give that out because I know it was important to me. So it'll be important to someone else.
Thank you so much. That is powerful.
Yeah.
We've taken that. Don't isolate yourself. That's one thing I just really encourage people to do. Don't isolate yourself. Give back. Be kind. Thank you, Kimberly. Your story is amazing. You got greater days ahead of you.
Yes, because I will live and not die.
I love that.
Proclaim what the Lord has done.
Thank you. Hey, we want to thank you for tuning in today, the Other Side of the Story podcast. Make sure you like and subscribe. Follow us on every social media platform, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. And remember, next week, tune in again.